1930, Breadline prayers. The Great Depression. A father's silence in a world that forgot how to feed its own. They said it would be temporary. A slump. Just a downturn. But winters passed. And still, no work. Every morning, I'd put on my coat like I had somewhere to go. I polished my boots with spit and stubbornness. I kissed my wife on the forehead, as if it meant something. And I walked out the door with empty hands and a full heart, full of shame. I used to fix rail cars. My hands knew metal, knew motion. Now they only knew the weight of stillness, of waiting, of asking for food in lines that stretched longer than memory. They called them bread lines, but I called them prayer lines. Because all you could do was stand there, hat in hand, and pray the bread wouldn't run out before your turn came. The men around me didn't talk much. Not anymore. Words had run dry, just like the jobs, just like our savings. Some stared ahead. Some stared down. One man stared at the sky. I asked why. He said, "Maybe God will notice us from up there." I didn't laugh. Because I'd stopped praying out loud, too. My boy asked me why I stood in that line every day. I told him I was learning patience. He believed me. Kids always believe their fathers, even when they lie with trembling voices. The truth is, I stood in that line because it was the only place left where I still felt like a man. Not because of the bread, but because I was still doing something, still showing up, still trying. I remember the first time I brought home a loaf. It was hard, stale, but my son called it treasure. My wife smiled like I'd given her diamonds. I broke it into pieces like communion. We ate slowly, carefully, reverently. There was no dinner conversation that night. Just chewing. And silent tears that no one acknowledged. You don't talk about hunger. Not real hunger. Not the kind that hollows out your soul and replaces it with shame. It makes you quiet. It makes you small. The neighbors moved away. Some vanished in the middle of the night. Some boarded trains west, chasing rumors of work. One man, Mr. Lawson, he hung himself in his barn. Left a note that said, "I'm sorry I couldn't provide." I couldn't go to the funeral. Because I understood too well. Sometimes I wonder if silence is just grief that forgot how to speak. One morning, my son handed me a drawing. It was of me, standing in a line. He wrote underneath it, "My dad is strong." I wept in the outhouse. Didn't want him to see his strong dad crumbling like old bread. I stood in line again today. Same boots, same coat. Same weight in my stomach that wasn't just hunger. The man in front of me coughed into his sleeve. It was wet and red. Nobody looked at him. We didn't speak in the bread line. Words took energy. Hope took energy. We had neither. My boy used to run to the window when he heard my key. Now he doesn't even ask if I found work. He just looks past me. Like maybe the father he remembers is still somewhere behind me. I used to bring home meat. Now I bring home shame wrapped in silence. My wife tries to make stew out of boiled bones and excuses. "I'll make it stretch," she says. But I see her counting the slices of bread before we sit. I caught myself last night, sitting at the table long after they went to bed. Just sitting. Like maybe the bread would reappear if I waited long enough. I don't pray anymore. Not the way I used to. Back when prayers felt like letters with a chance of reaching God. Now they just bounce around in my skull. Why him? Why us? Why now? Scene after scene plays in my head. Men begging for jobs they'd once walked away from. Women pretending hunger was just a diet. Children learning to chew slowly to feel full longer. And me, the man who once had pride sewn into every button, now avoiding mirrors. Ashamed of the stranger staring back. There was a man today who screamed in line. Said it wasn't real bread. Said the government was feeding us lies. No one stopped him. We just looked down. Let him scream for all of us. Because we all felt it. The rot of it. The betrayal. I saw a boy steal an apple from a cart and run. The vendor didn't chase him, just sighed like he'd lost the coin to the wind. You start to believe you're the problem, that you didn't try hard enough, didn't love your family enough to feed them. But it's not about how hard you worked. It's about how fast the ground disappeared beneath your feet. I think of my father, how he stood tall even with little, how he would have hated to see me like this. I think of my son, and what it means when he watches me break slowly. Maybe one day he'll understand. Maybe one day he'll forgive me. For the silence, for the cracked hands, for the nights I didn't kiss him goodnight because I couldn't bear to face him. The breadline is longer now. It bends around buildings, follows the shape of failure. But I still stand in it, not just for bread, but for dignity. For one more day where I didn't give up. Even if I come home with nothing, I still come home. And sometimes that has to be enough. They handed me soup today, and I didn't cry. I held the bowl in my hands. It was warm, real. It wasn't much, but it was something. And for the first time in weeks, I remembered what hunger hadn't felt like. I sat on the curb and drank slow. Steam curled up into the air like prayers I forgot how to say. No one talked. No one needed to. We all knew what it meant to get that bowl. We all carried the same quiet gratitude. One man next to me gave me his bread, said his stomach couldn't take it anymore. I looked at him, thin, pale, eyes sunken like forgotten boats. You needed more, he said, then walked away before I could say thank you. I watched him disappear into the crowd, and I swore I'd remember him. I walked home with that bread in my pocket, and something strange stirred in my chest. Not joy, not yet, but something that felt like the memory of joy. I gave half to my daughter. She blinked like I was Santa Claus. I gave the other half to my boy. He hid it under his pillow, just in case. I watched them chew, and in that silence, something lifted from me. Not all of it, but enough. Later that night, I found a scrap of paper, an old list, my wife's handwriting. Flour, beans, candle wicks, hope, hope. She used to write that at the bottom of every grocery list, as if it were something you could buy, as if it cost nothing. I laughed, then cried, but they were different tears, tears that washed, not burned. Next morning I shaved, with cold water and shaking hands. Then I walked into town and asked, "Do you need help hauling crates?" The man looked at me like I was invisible, then said, "Can you start now?" I said, "Yes, sir." And I meant it. The work was hard, but it was work. My hands remembered. My back remembered. And when he handed me a dime, I almost dropped it. It was the first coin I'd earned since the crash. It was mine. That night, I placed it on the table. My kids stared at it like it was gold. And maybe it was. Not because it could buy much, but because it meant maybe tomorrow we'd eat again. Maybe I still had worth. Even now. Even after all this. Even after losing the farm. Even after the shame. I tucked them in tighter that night. Sang a lullaby I hadn't sung since their mother died. And when I sat back down at the table, I whispered to the coin, "Thank you for remembering me." And I swear, for a second, it felt like she was still here. The dime is still in the drawer, wrapped in cloth like it's sacred. I never spent it. Never could. It was more than money. It was proof I could still matter. Years passed. The lines got shorter, but they never disappeared. Soup turned into potatoes. Potatoes turned into stew. And someday, I stopped counting the days. My children grew. Their cheeks filled out. Their eyes stopped darting at every noise. My boy got a job at the post office. My girls started drawing again. They began smiling without guilt. That's how I knew we were healing. Not fixed. Not whole. But healing. I still walk past that breadline sometimes. Still see the faces. New ones. Still feel the weight of my own silence. But now, I carry it differently. Not like a wound. Like a memory. I nod to the ones waiting. Sometimes I drop a loaf in the basket. It's not much. But I remember how much not much can be. Some mornings I sit with my coffee and stare at the chair across from me. Her chair. Still empty. Still waiting. But it doesn't ache like it used to. Because now, when I close my eyes, I hear her humming in the kitchen. Not real, but real enough. Sometimes I talk to her. Just little things. About the weather. About the kids. About how we made it through. And I thank her for teaching me to plant hope in hard soil. For writing it at the bottom of the list. Flour. Beans. Candle wicks. Hope. Funny how I thought it was just a word. Turns out, it was everything. Now when I see a man with empty hands, I don't look away. I nod. I remember. And if I can, I give him bread. Because once, someone gave it to me. And it saved more than my stomach. It saved me.